Grammy for the single Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. But he was disappointed that Off the Wall didn't win Best Album of the Year. Jackson resolved to surpass his own success.
There is a legendary story that CBS had no idea that they could top Off the Wall. And when Michael Jackson said that he wanted to top that, they just sort of said, you know, okay, kid, I mean, whatever you say.
By 1982, no one imagined that 24-year-old Michael Jackson could top the success of his first solo album, Off the Wall. But Michael was eager to prove the world wrong. Epic Records released Michael Jackson's Thriller album in December of that year.
Thriller was a record that just took everybody by surprise.
Audiences went wild over the album. Within a month, Thriller reached gold and then platinum. In February 1983, Jackson's single Billie Jean became the most popular song in the country and around the world.
There were always Billie Jeans, basically women who would write him letters, and there was one in particular who was writing to him and telling him that you know, she was going to kill herself and that he was the father of her child, and Michael was just, you know, horrified by all this.
Michael's ode to Billie Jean was just the beginning.
There were 9 songs on that album. Each one could have been a top 10 hit on its own. 7 of them did become top 10 hits. And the videos created for those songs were groundbreaking.
Michael's most famous video, Thriller, paid tribute to the classic horror films he loved, like The Wolfman and Night of the Living Dead. But the video didn't square with Jackson's religion, which forbids members from delving into the supernatural.
Michael was contacted by Jehovah's Witness officials who said, wait a second, you know, you can't do this. And you know, we're going to kick you out of the religion if this comes out.
Jackson tried to pull the plug on Thriller, but record company executives didn't want to dump the costly 20-minute film.
Michael's attorney said, listen, you know, Bela Lugosi was a Catholic, and his whole thing as Dracula was make-believe, and it was part of just having fun. I think that we could put something at the beginning of Thriller, a disclaimer that will say, I don't believe in the occult, and Michael accepted that.
When this man broke into Billie Jean, it was absolute pandemonium. People were coming out of their clothes, wigs were going crooked, people were standing on the tables.
And it was the first time we saw the moonwalk, and it was the first time the hat got thrown out, and it was the first time that we saw all of the components of what Michael had been working on to turn himself into sort of this amazing Sinatra, Gene Kelly, Michael Jackson kind of character. And Michael Jackson claimed his place in pop history as the king of pop with his performance of Billie Jean on Motown 25.
Meanwhile, Thriller sold 51 million copies and became the best-selling album of all time. In March 1985, Madame Tussauds Wax Museum in London honored Michael Jackson with a life-size replica. Michael reigned supreme as the king of pop. In September 1986, Michael broke more records when Pepsi paid him a cool $10 million to perform in 3 TV commercials.
This is a great honor. Thank you, Mr. Enrico.
Michael's deal with Pepsi was the biggest endorsement deal to date at that time. And it was significant for a couple of reasons. One, Pepsi had decided to hinge their fortunes onto a pop star. Number 2, this was a black man. In the African-American community, that was a triumph.
In September 1987, Jackson's third solo album, Bad, hit music stores. The album stayed at #1 for 6 weeks and spawned a record-setting 5 straight #1 singles. Even so, Bad sold about 18 million fewer copies than Thriller.
I don't know if Michael Jackson could have produced anything, let alone Bad, that would have met both the artistic and the commercial expectations set by Thriller.
Jackson set out to give Bad a boost. For the first time in his life, Michael launched a solo tour.
I think that was the way he felt like he could reclaim the glory of Thriller, you know, was to get out on the road again. You know, and those were strong shows.
He's got his own security department, he's got his own fire department, he's got his own water company, he's got his own landfill. You don't even go through his trash. You don't put his trash out.
Michael wrapped up the Bad tour on January 27th, 1989 in Los Angeles. Jackson still had the magic.
Well, the Bad tour was the most successful tour in history up until that point. I mean, Michael was making like $1 million a show at that time. This thing went on for 17 months, and he ended up playing for millions and millions of people.
Still, Michael announced an end to life on the road.
This probably shocked people because we knew him as this incredible entertainer. But Michael has always said, no one realizes what goes on when I'm up on stage. I mean, he probably loses about 5 pounds a night every time he goes on stage.
Meanwhile, Jackson's latest album, Dangerous, created a sensation in November 1991.
Around the world, you had pictures of people waiting outside record stores, waiting to get their hands on this record. People in Manila, people in Australia, people in England, people in Paris.
The album hit the charts at #1, and so did the single Black or White. But Dangerous still didn't match the success of Thriller, a setback for Jackson and Sony. By 1992, 34-year-old Michael Jackson needed to boost his record sales. That June, Jackson broke his vow to never go on the road again. He embarked on a world tour for Dangerous, 29th, 1993. When he performed in Singapore that night, a capacity crowd sang Happy Birthday. But the next day, Jackson collapsed backstage. He canceled the next concert, claiming physical exhaustion. Jackson's new album, History, dropped in October 1994 and immediately went to #1. But after only 2 weeks, History was history. The first single failed to crack the top 40. That fall, Michael decided to face his fans one more time. But Jackson never made it. On December 6th, Michael collapsed on stage during a rehearsal for an HBO special. Jackson was rushed to the hospital and diagnosed with dehydration and inflammation of the stomach. In October 2001, Michael released yet another album titled Invincible. But the Sony recording flopped. Jackson blamed Sony chieftain Tommy Mottola for not promoting the album. ABC